Hi, my name is Joey Wiley Joseph Dollinger III. Please like and subscribe, and welcome to Students of Truth. So, I'm actually making this video um, to discuss a new spiritual psychology, a couple of aspects actually. So, alchemy, um, um, and a practical way that we can apply that, and this new understanding, so that we can identify our higher self, our I, our ego consciousness, and the evolution of consciousness, what Christ consciousness ultimately can be. But so this new spiritual psychology, okay, so in alchemy. So I wanna just perhaps oversimplify this for some people, because it's really profound and applies to anyone. It doesn't matter what spiritual or religious, cultural, dialect, native belief systems you have, but you can apply this. It's for every individual. Okay, so it's this new spiritual psychology that I've been learning. Right, try not to overcomplicate it, but and alchemy. Okay, and so alchemy, there's two parts that I'll try to explain for alchemy, which is polarity, the law of polarity, and relativity, right? So, almost anyway. So, alchemy. All right. So anything is possible, right? We know that in particle physics. This is called superposition. Um, this was a Schrodinger's cat. The scenario is you have a cat in a sealed container with a vial of poison. The proposition is the cat alive or dead? Okay, and so the answer is it exists in both states. It's called superposition. It's alive and dead until you open the box and observe it. Okay, until you choose to observe it, it exists in both states. It's called superposition. Okay, the the what particle physics, physicists tried to understand, is when does it switch from superposition, infinite possibilities, it exists in both states and all states. When does it go from superposition to solidified, right? And no longer infinite potentialities, right? But anything is possible, right? So there was this really difficult concept for me to understand, but we've proven that a couple of ways. So superposition, the cat exists in both states until we choose to observe it. This is the same thing with quantum computers. Can be a 1 and a 0 at the same time, a positive and a negative charge to a niobium ring that travel in opposite directions on opposite sides, so that it can be a 1 and a 0 at the same time, was from this discovery, the double slit experiment, wave particle duality, the observer effect. So that a photon, which is a single particle of light, can be a particle and a wave at the same time. The double slit experiment, it goes through both slits exclusively, neither slit, and both slits at the same time, all possibilities. The only differentiation is when we observe it, to measure it. Okay? So, but anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. This is superposition, wave particle duality. Anything is possible. This has to do with consciousness and faith in what we believe in, awareness. But alchemy is what I'm hoping to explain. But anything is possible. We understand that in particle physics. It's irrefutably true. There's no way that we can not prove it. We're making quantum computers now on this wave particle duality, superposition, infinite potentials. There are infinite potentials. Anything is possible. Infinite potentials. Anything is possible, right? Until we observe it, right? Until we solidify it. So we navigate throughout objectionable reality and we observe items, objects, ideas. And so when we observe something, our observation forms a relationship to those things. All right. and our observation becomes our belief. And our belief is either faith, which creates anticipation, or it's a doubt, which creates anxiety. Okay? But the observer effect, our perception. Now, this is how alchemy works. Okay? This is how alchemy works. Two things to understand about alchemy: the law of polarity and relativity. So, relativity, Einstein proved relativity, which all you really have to understand about relativity is that it means it depends on where you're standing. All right? So, time is relative to the Earth. This was illustrated in the movie like Interstellar, when they landed on the other planet, traveled intergalactically and landed on another planet, and they said, hurry up, for every 1 hour that we spend on this planet, 7 years goes by on Earth. They had some kind of catastrophe and ended up spending 3 hours on this planet in the movie Interstellar, and 21 years had gone by on Earth. It's time dilation. Because time is relative to the Earth, the further you go from Earth, the slower that time goes. In fact, if you travel at the speed of light, time stops. Okay? It's 186,000 miles per second. If you travel at the speed of light, time stops. Einstein proved this with relativity, special relativity. So it gave birth to the twins paradox and the grandfather paradox. If you had identical twins and you sent one off the surface of the Earth, because time is relative to the surface of the Earth, if you sent one into space traveling at the speed of light, came back, when the twin on the Earth is 20 years old, the spacefaring twin would not have aged at all. Time stops at the speed of light. Or if it was going slower, you see what I'm saying? Time is relative to the surface of the Earth. It's relative to where you are standing. Relativity. It's where you are standing. Einstein also proved retrocausality, our ability to affect our present moment by changing our future. Okay, check that out. Our ability to affect our present moment by changing our future. It's a paradigm shifting. This all has to do with an individual's perception, our perception. Okay? So relativity is where you're standing. There's the Hermetic immutable universal laws, invisible immutable universal laws. There's 7 of them. One of them is the law of polarity. And what it says is thesis and antithesis are the same. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Opposites are all truths are but half truths. All opposites are different in degree, but not in type. They're actually the same thing. So you take hot and cold, or good and bad, love and hate, light and dark. These are polar opposites. They're actually 2 different observations of the same exact underlying thing, and they're always relative. That's why you can say that it's hot, and somebody else in the same room can say that it's cold, because it's relative. It depends on how you look at this underlying thing. It's hot or it's cold. It's the temperature. They're the same thing. They're not opposites. They're just 2 different degrees of the same thing. Same thing with love and hate, light and dark. That's why there's no exact temperature when it turns from hot to warm to cold, because it's relative. You decide that it's hot. You decide that it's cold. Okay? So relativity, it depends on where you're standing, your perception, your point of view. So, alchemy. This is the real magic, I swear it is. I apologize that this is the only thing really that's, I think, relevant or can really help anyone and anybody. So, by changing the way that we look at something, by changing our point of view, by changing our perspective, by changing what we perceive, okay? Because superposition and things exist in both states, you can take any argument, like people say the earth is round. There's people that say that the earth is flat. Let's say that I believe the earth is round, right? Let's say that I pick one, right? I think the earth is round. Well, to me, that's true, but it actually exists in both states, because to that person, it's flat. It actually exists in both states. This is the Buddhist doctrine of two truths, relative and supreme truth. Everything on the earth exists in a constant state of becoming, because the truth cannot change, it is eternal, lest it would not be the truth that nothing on the earth, man or the earth, is actually true. It can only be interpretations of it, right? Okay, so it's what we believe. So alchemy is to the things that you perceive or view as obstacles or problems in your life, or traumatic events, catastrophes, or resentments and things in the past, or obstacles and problems. Anything that you see that way, if you change the way that you see them, and instead of seeing it as an obstacle, you learn to see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity, actually. There are no problems. There's only opportunities, right? If we can change our perception from like in people's past, we have resentments, and you can unconditional love. So the spiritual psychology actually is like about awareness, self-awareness, awareness that our higher self, like our spiritual self, the evolution of our consciousness, our I, the I am aspect, right, is free will. Man doesn't actually have free will, because we're subservient to conditions like hunger. You could say this man can do whatever he wants. Well, no, he can't. Anything he does is he's gonna make sure that he can eat, because we are subservient to that. There's like conditions that all people have to do, so we're not completely free. But I will be what I will to be, that man can become whatever he wants, right? So this is alchemy. So our awareness, right? Our higher self, there's a living, immaculate, intrinsic living light that animates our anatomical body, the spark that gives us life is consciousness. All right, so self-awareness and consciousness, people talk about Christ consciousness. This is unconditional love. Christ consciousness is what you perceive it to be. Anything is only what you perceive it to be. To you, that is what it is. If I say Christ consciousness is unconditional love, that's because to me, I believe that. I have faith in that. Like I know that, right? Like I'm convinced, thoroughly convinced of that. So I'll say that because to me, that is very true. At the same time, Christ consciousness, there are people that talk about how Christ is a slave ship to enslave people, and to them that is what it is. If to that person, their experience, everybody's life gives them a very unique experience, unique and exclusive to everyone else's. We come from different cultures and dialects and people, but we have this common thing, this awareness. We are conscious, our ability to reason, logic, right? And the evolution of consciousness and where it is today, and the spiritual psychology, alchemy, learning to see your obstacles like opportunities. If you can, Buddha taught there is suffering in the world, and he taught the end of suffering. Thought suffering was because of attachment, desires, and expectations. Attachments are when we look for something outside of ourselves to make us happy. People, places, and things, cars, houses, items, things that people require to make them happy. If something were to happen to these things, these people would be devastated, not be happy. That means they have an attachment to their house or their car. So they require these attachments in order to be happy. And so this is what Buddha taught: attachments, desire, and expectations. So our happiness is contingent upon something outside of ourselves. But because we're powerless over other people, places, and things outside of ourselves, our state of well-being is contingent on something that we don't have any control over. So when circumstances in life happens and something happens to the car unexpectedly, or the house, or the loved one, then people are devastated. They're not happy. They're upset. Okay? And that's because they have an attachment to something outside of themselves, and that is actually what addiction is defined as. They say it's an incurable disease, but I promise you that I'm thoroughly convinced it really doesn't have to be. It is whatever you perceive it to be, whatever you believe. That's the power of faith. Whatever you believe is true for you. Superposition: the earth exists in both states, but we can solidify with the power of faith. We can understand that actually anything is possible, right? Anything is possible until we decide that. It's like good and evil are relative. What I say is good, someone else can say is not good. Like, it isn't good or bad. People's perception make it good or bad. An item or object or idea isn't inherently good or bad, but when people see it, they say it's bad or they say it's good. People make other objects good or bad. You understand? They're not good or bad on their own. They're only good or bad in somebody's opinion. Everybody might have the same opinion, but the way that perception and observation works, right? And relativity, that if we change the way that we see these things, these obstacles, we can change the way we look at it and look at it like opportunities, or that we benefit from some trauma, that it was in some way a blessing in disguise. And so that ultimately is raising our vibration, like we are a living light, immaculate, intrinsic living light, our higher self actually, and becoming self-aware. This is where ideas come from. The absolute ideal, Hegelian or Kantian philosophy, the absolute ideal, it's where ideas, imagination, intuition, inspiration come from. This is the higher self within the Trinity of man, right? The spiritual higher self. We have our physical body, ether body, astral body, and our I, our individual I, ego consciousness. Because man does have free will, or will be what he wills to be, gives a birth to an ego, right? It's because we have free will that we have an ego, actually. That's where ego comes from, is because we have free will. That's self-evident. It requires no argument. But retrocausality, our ability to affect our present moment by changing our future. So if you really digest that, that's incredible. That has to do with relativity. But if we can learn to see obstacles like opportunities, and past traumatic experiences or resentments or whatever as being a benefit in some way to us, a blessing in disguise, a bigger picture that we don't understand, right? In our cognitive state, like, that's alchemy. That's what alchemy is. It's the transmutation, mental transmutation, to take things that you see as bad and somehow make them good, and that will raise your vibration. It will protect you. Whatever it is that you want to manifest and visualize, and our ability to affect our present moment by changing our future. And people talk about manifesting their future and all the different ways to do that. This alchemy is the critical missing element, occult element, that people have actually been massacred and martyred for a long time. So we're actually really incredible that we get to study and learn and talk about these things now. So, alchemy, and the alchemy that I'm telling you, the transmutation, mental transmutation to turn your obstacles into opportunities, your problems and resentments into blessings in disguise, and valuable, irreplaceable experience that you, everything that's ever happened had to happen so that you can be exactly where you are and know exactly the things that you do. And it's our perception that we have the power to change. It's our perception. Our higher self is where inspiration, ideas, imagination, intuition come from. It's a moral obligation, ethics, aesthetics, which is beauty, right? So that's when you see something that's beautiful, that's an inspiration from inside, right? You ascribe beauty to something that otherwise is mundane. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's what I'm saying. When you see something, a sunset or something, you're inspired from within and you see beauty. Somebody else that sees the same sunset could say it's not beautiful because it's perception. It's the observer effect. It's what you choose to perceive. It's what we can change. And it will raise your vibration and, heal any, like, we are energy, man. Like, everything energy recycles. Thermodynamics, entropy, don't get me started. Morphic resonance, energy is recycled. Energy can't be created or destroyed. This because the amount of energy in the universe never changes, but the universe is expanding. You know that's where the Big Bang theory came from, is because everything in the universe was expanding at the same speed from a point. So they said, okay, everything came from the singularity. All matter and energy in the universe was connected at a point of infinite density, the Big Bang, the singularity. It's because everything was traveling at the same speed, but by the calculations they did, they expected everything to stop expanding around the year 2012. Well, and they didn't know what would happen, if it would go backwards or what. Not only did it not stop expanding, it's still expanding at the same exact speed. And this was in the year 2000. They thought it would stop expanding. And when it didn't, that's when they created dark matter and dark energy, actually, was to explain that, why it's still expanding. But space is expanding, but energy can't be created or destroyed. But space is expanding. So energy is being morphic resonance, Rupert Sheldrake. But alchemy, man, I want to tell people that, right? But it's so simple. Polarity, relativity, anything is possible. You can change the way you see something, and it will raise your vibration. And your subconscious, you're a magnet. Don't get me started on hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and artificial intelligence. But because of superposition, that's how quantum computers work. It's a niobium ring that they charge with a positive and a negative particle from the top and the bottom to rotate in different directions, so it can be a 0 and a 1 at the same time. That's quantum computers, qubits. Well, it's superposition. The cat is alive and dead. It's in both states until you choose to observe it, and then you decide if it's alive or dead. It's the power of observation is what we have the ability to change. That is alchemy. You change the way you look at something. You change the way that you look at something and learn to turn darkness into light, and or we aspire to the nature that we aspire to. And Trinity of man, thinking, feeling, willing, like our will, what we actually do. This video is way too long, probably.